I'm going to give you 31 scientifically proven tips on how to avoid dementia. Dementia is not just like one little symptom or disease. It's a spectrum of a lot of things that go wrong with the brain, from memory loss to language problems to personality changes, problems with thinking and solving problems. A high carb diet is the big thing behind dementia, and also deficiencies like B12 and other deficiencies that can cause dementia. I love it when they say that 40% of dementia can be prevented with lifestyle changes. 40%. So why do they say it's that low? Why isn't it higher? What is the 60% that you can't do anything about? That's my question. I'm telling you right now, you should actively and aggressively do things to prevent it and avoid it. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Number one, age is the biggest risk factor for dementia because the older you get, the more chance of you getting dementia. But when we get older, there's a certain hormone that really goes way, way, way too high. It's in your pituitary and it sends a signal down to the gonads, both the ovaries and the testicles. So it tells those organs to work, and then there's a feedback loop that is complying with the order to produce more hormones. But of course, when we get older, like in a female body, they lose the function of the ovaries, and then men also have testicular atrophy, so they also lose the function of the gonads. So now this luteinizing hormone is just going crazy, sending all these signals, but it's not working, so it goes really, really high. There's a lot of ways to lower it. Three of the best ways are ashwagandha, magnesium, and zinc. Women and men have low testosterone. Improving your testosterone can also protect your brain in a significant way. I will put a link down below to some videos on how to do that. Let's go on to number two, TUDCA. TUDCA is a synthetic version of bear bile. Bile that's produced by the liver that's stored in the gallbladder. But apparently bears have a different version that's really good for certain body conditions that we have related to the brain and nervous system. TUDCA is used for people that had strokes because it crosses the blood-brain barrier. It's also really powerful for insulin resistance and making insulin more sensitive. In addition to a lot of other things related to the liver, it can really help to decrease inflammation of the liver, decrease cirrhosis, and even a fatty liver. Let's talk about number three, milk thistle. This is another thing that's also good for protecting the liver against poison, like snake poisoning, mushroom poisoning. This is like the antidote. It has a very special property of protecting the liver, and it's a powerful antioxidant to your nerves in your brain, helping to decrease the toxic plaque that can build up in the brain that you see in dementia. But it's interesting because liver damage can mimic problems with your brain. Even like advanced cirrhosis can really affect the cognitive function. Then we have something called betaine hydrochloride. This is normally a natural remedy used to help increase acid in the stomach. It's good for indigestion, acid reflux. But as we age and get older, we lose our stomach acid. We lose our ability to absorb minerals. We lose our ability to digest protein and extract certain nutrients from protein like B12. And if we don't have enough stomach acid and we can't absorb B12, those symptoms of a B12 deficiency can mimic, what's that called? Dementia. Next one is number five, air pollution. If you're in a toxic environment, especially with your air, and this also relates to, smoking, breathing, and pollution. All this pollution goes into the lungs. It ends up in your bloodstream, and it ends up in the brain, and it creates oxidative stress and inflammation, and that can start to affect your brain. Now, there's various apps that you can get to see how much pollution is in your current environment, and if it's a lot, boy, you're going to have to get an air filter in your house and try your best to breathe clean air, and maybe you're going to have to move. But I just wanted to point out that air pollution is a pretty big risk in relationship to cognitive function. Not as much as smoking, but it's definitely a factor. This is why I always recommend that people spend a lot of time walking through nature, going to the woods where you have clean air. Number six, progesterone. This is another really interesting topic because progesterone protects your brain. They use it for therapy for degenerative brain diseases. And so unfortunately, when we get older, the progesterone really crashes way down, both in men and women. So I'm just putting that on your radar because if you have dementia, I think taking progesterone would be a very smart thing to do. Next one, number seven, is music and dance. Music and dance has been studied to help reduce the risk of dementia because you're stimulating certain parts of your brain and you're also increasing a very powerful hormone called oxytocin. Oxytocin is probably one of the best ways to reduce chronic stress and cortisol. So music and dance is a great way to not just reduce your stress, but also enhance your sleep, which we're going to talk about. The next one, number 8, is depression. Your mood can affect all sorts of physiology, including neurons in your brain. I have a lot of videos on depression. I will put some links down below, but vitamin D3 is at the top of the list of things to try. Next one is DHA. This is a type of omega-3 fatty acid that is a structural protein. A good portion of our brain is made out of DHA. And when people are deficient in DHA, they're way more at risk for dementia. So it's really important as part of your diet to consume good amount of fatty fish. Also it could be sardines, it could be cod liver oil, just to really get that DHA. Another really important trace mineral is zinc for the brain, as well as to help decrease the risk of plaque. You can get that from red meat, you can get that from oysters, shellfish, a lot of different foods. Number 11 is very interesting. It's called Deprenyl. This is a drug. Now, I'm not recommending taking this drug. It's very interesting because I just read a book on it. And this is like an anti-aging drug. The FDA approved it for Parkinson's, but not dementia, even though there's some pretty hardcore clinical trials that show that it works for that, because what it does is it inhibits the breakdown of neurotransmitters. And of course, if we're dealing with dementia, we don't want that to happen because that's going to worsen dementia and cognitive function, right? This drug inhibits that process, but of course, I always like the natural version of that. Like, is there a natural MAOB inhibitor? Yes, there are. There's quite a few of them. Are they as potent? No, but there's less side effects, and that's what I like. And that is something called Noble Kava. And I wouldn't even take this unless I had dementia, but it's just something that you should know about as potentially an alternative to that drug. Let's talk about number 12. Chelate aluminum. Yes, it is true that when aluminum builds up in the brain, it can affect cognitive function. What you should know about that is there's a natural chelator, that means claw, connecting to the aluminum and other heavy metals, and then it helps pull it out. But silica, you can do silica water or a silica supplement. There's been evidence of it working for children that have autism as well, which is interesting. Let's go to number 13, NAD. NAD basically takes the electrons from food into a battery to help make energy. But as we get older, NAD decreases. So there's all these strategies to help increase NAD. One way is just to provide the raw material to make NAD, and that's niacin, it's vitamin B3, as well as doing high intensity interval training. So both of these can help increase NAD. All right, number 14, exercise. Of course, exercise is one of the most potent things you can do to prevent and avoid dementia because you're reducing stress, you're getting all this oxygen, you're stimulating certain genes that increase brain-derived neurotrophic factor that basically helps you grow new brain cells. If your environment is off, everything else struggles. It's like a fish tank. Pollute the water and the fish get sick. You could feed them the best food, you can treat every single symptom, but if the water stays toxic, nothing recovers. The body runs on 10 signals like insulin, cortisol, inflammation, sleep quality, gut function. Every one of them affects how you feel. But there is always one signal that is more broken than the rest. And until you fix that one, everything else stays stuck. I built a free 2-minute quiz that finds it for you. It tells you which one of the main signals is holding your body back right now. Click the link in the description, take the quiz, and stop guessing. Let's go to the next one, 15. Mental stimulation, like puzzles, learning a new language, learning music, learning anything. Some people, when they retire, they move to Florida and then they sit in a chair and then they watch TV. They can kind of go down into dementia a lot faster. Let's go to number 16, social engagement. Social engagement stimulates oxytocin that really will help lower stress and increase bonding, but it's also huge with decreasing the risk of dementia. So that's another really key factor. Number 17, gum health. Do you know they found certain byproducts from dental bacteria in the plaque of cadavers with dementia? They also found this dental bacteria in the plaque in the arteries. So if you have a gum infection or an abscess, that can leak into the body, travel up into the brain, and create an immune reaction. In fact, this plaquing is now thought of as an immune reaction to some microbe. So that's one of the theories right now. It could be a microbe or it could be a virus. And now the body's trying to protect it and actually growing plaque in there. You just want to take care of your gums, take care of your teeth. I think the most important way is eating correctly. You're going to get the systemic, deeper stuff out of your body. So a lot of people ask me, what supplements do I recommend? Now, of course, I'm not biased of my own high quality supplement line, but if you go to Amazon and type Dr. Berg supplements, you'll find more information. Number 18 is non-dominant hand puzzles. I'm right-handed. If I start doing puzzles with my left hand, it really is kind of a brain strain, and it stimulates the brain a lot more than just my right hand. So if you start doing things with your left hand, apparently it actually can help decrease the risk of dementia. Number 19, hypoxic training. You should really know about this. So what is hypoxic training? You basically can put this thing on, it goes like this, right here, and then you could adjust it for restricting oxygen, and it correlates with different altitudes. So you can go up like 5,000 feet, 7,500 feet, or 10,000 feet, and you can do various short sprints or exercise with lower amounts of oxygen to create a hypoxic state. Now, what does that do? That triggers some really powerful genetics to then force your blood cells to get bigger, grow more capillaries, and increase more oxygen. It's a great way to help increase recovery from exercise and also to increase oxygen carrying capacity. But there's a lot of great research in doing this after stroke and also to improve your brain. Number 20, a B12 deficiency can mimic dementia. And that can come from a lack of stomach acid, or it can come because you don't consume any animal products. Some people even have a genetic issue where they can't absorb it as much. And that's me, by the way. So I have to make sure I have enough food with B12. But B12 is very important also in building up your myelin sheath for your brain. Okay, 21, vitamin D3, or getting enough sun. This is another very important vitamin because it's involved in over 2,000 genes, and it's super anti-inflammatory for your brain. You don't want to just take small doses. You want to take higher amounts, at least 6, 7, 8,000 to 10,000 IU every single day, or get regular sun each day without getting burnt. 22, a B1 deficiency. I mean, there's like some serious documentation of what it can do to your brain if you don't have B1. The one that I would recommend for the brain is a fat-soluble benfotiamine. There are other fat-soluble B1s that you can use. One is allethiamine. So having that B1 is very important in protecting you against dementia, but realize that what will create a deficiency of B1 is eating a lot of refined carbs and refined sugar. Even a lot of tea and coffee can deplete B1 if you have a lot of it. 23, physical work. I think physical work is one of the best ways to reduce stress. It's so much better than getting on a treadmill because you're doing something productive and you're doing exercise around the yard, in the house, cleaning. I've already talked about smoking. Let me just mention number 25, drinking alcohol does nothing for your health. It's not going to improve your heart. The alcohol doesn't just affect the liver, it affects the brain. Okay, it creates a toxicity of your neurons. I already mentioned this antacid situation, but let me just talk about 27 probiotics. Talk about fermented foods, kefir, yogurt, raw cheese. All of these have probiotics, and there's what's called the gut-brain axis. And there is overwhelming evidence that you need to support the gut to prevent dementia. And so I'm just bringing it up as another thing that's going to be very, very important. It's not your cells, but it's something that lives in you that's super vital. And then I want to mention iron overload. There's also a connection with too much iron that can really destroy your brain. Iron is one of those things where it's hard to get rid of iron. And so this is why I never recommend taking an iron supplement. One thing that you might want to do at some point is just give blood and see how you feel. If you donate blood and you feel a lot better, suspect that you have iron overload. Number 29. If you're doing a low carb diet, I recommend you do the healthy version of the ketogenic diet. I will put that link down below. But what you're doing when you're doing low carb is you're fixing insulin resistance and you're really helping the brain. And I really believe that those people who have done keto a good portion of their life and haven't abused the sugar and refined starches, which are hidden sugars, they're not going to get dementia because they can get the fuel to the brain and the brain's happy. And it's a better fuel source. And if someone has dementia, that's when I recommend, consuming like MCT oil and even taking ketones as a supplement to literally just feed the brain ketones. You're going to definitely feel better on a cognitive level. And then with this low carb, intermittent fasting, both of these together will help decrease insulin resistance. Intermittent fasting and prolonged fasting will basically create an autophagy state where your body is cleaning up all this junk, this toxic plaque out of your brain. And you say, well, what about vascular dementia? Well, it's going to be the best thing to support the heart too, and the blood vessels to the heart and the arteries and preventing a stroke. And then lastly, deep sleep. What happens when you sleep? You're basically cleaning out or detoxifying your brain. So not getting enough sleep, whether you have sleep apnea or whatever, can really contribute to dementia. And then lastly, I just have to mention this ApoE gene. If you get your DNA tested and this gene puts you at a certain risk factor, you might have genes that make you vulnerable, but that is not in control. It's the epigenetics. So you could very easily change your lifestyle and not even have this be a factor at all. But it is good to actually get your DNA tested to see if you have it, just because it'll give you guidance on where your weak links are and what you need to put more attention on. Because if you know that that's your weak link, you're going to work harder at it. You now know a lot more about dementia, but there's still one last thing that you must learn about: the silent symptoms of dementia. In this video, I got over 12 million views for a very important reason. You're going to find out when you watch it right here. Click it right now. Go ahead, click it. It's right here. Check it out.